Ken Whiting here, and in this video, I'm talking about the essential kayaking gear and skills that all paddlers should know. I'm telling you this from my dining room table instead of outdoors and on the water because there's still ice on the water right now, but it's melting quick and I will soon be outdoors talking to you, and I'm looking forward to that. What I'm talking about here really doesn't involve I don't need to be on the water. And so let's dive right in, starting with the essential safety gear that all kayakers should have. Depending on the type of paddling outing that you're doing, there are a number of pieces of safety gear that could be considered essential. For example, if you're a whitewater paddler, a helmet is essential. If you're paddling in really cold water, then a dry suit could be considered an essential piece of safety gear. If you're going on backcountry trips, a reliable communication device is an essential piece of safety gear. But there are very few pieces of safety gear that are essential no matter what you're doing. And there's one in particular, the life jacket. Whether you're going on a little paddle in relatively shallow water out front of your cottage, or if you're going on a major offshore expedition. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're gonna hop in your boat, wear a life jacket. It's no different than wearing your seatbelt when you're driving. Yes, 99.9% of the time, it doesn't matter. It's not gonna make a difference. All it takes is once, and that life jacket can and will save your life. Now it's not safety gear, but it's a safety concept that's essential for any type of paddling. Paddling is a very safe activity. Problem with paddling is that because you're in a wild and water environment, when things do go wrong, things have the potential of spiraling out of control very quick. And that's why it's really important to use your common sense at all times and take a conservative approach. Make conservative decisions when you're on the water, because mistakes, accidents can be major accidents when you're on the water. Now let's talk about essential communication. Anytime you go on the water, you need to communicate what your plan is. It doesn't matter if you're just going for a quick little paddle in front of the cottage or going on a backcountry multi-day mission. You have to communicate your plan. Now, if you're just going for a quick little paddle in front of the cottage, that can be as simple as, telling someone at home, hey, I'm going for a quick paddle. I'm only going to be gone for about half an hour. Don't worry about me. Now, the further you go and the more remote you go, the more details you need to provide to people who aren't on the water. And that could be, it should be things like, where are you going specifically? So if you don't come back, where are people going to look to find you? How long are you going to be out there? Are you reachable? Do you have a communication device on you? How do people get hold of you? At what point should people start to get concerned about the fact that you're not coming back? The more information, the better that you can provide people, so that if something does go wrong on the water, you know that people back at home have the information they need to help. Now, the next thing to talk about with regards to essential communication is reliable communication devices. In many cases, a cell phone is a great, reliable communication device. If you have cell service, you need to know that you're going to have cell service where you're going. In some cases, a VHF radio is a great, reliable communication device, especially on bigger bodies of water, offshore, when people are using VHF radios. In the backcountry, or where you don't have reliable cell phone coverage or VHF coverage, then a satellite communicator like the Zoleo. This is a sucker I've been using for the past 4 years. Great communication tool to have, because it doesn't matter where you are. You can communicate with the outside world anytime, anywhere. And you can do cool things like check the weather while you're out there as well, which makes it more than a safety device. It makes it a trip planning device as well. So now let's talk about essential kayaking comfort gear. And we're going to start with footwear. because footwear, I mean, wearing the wrong footwear is not only uncomfortable to be in stinky, wet, nasty shoes, but it's also a safety issue. Most accidents actually happen on shore, getting to and from the water, versus on the water itself. And that's usually a result of uneven and slippery shorelines. And so having a good pair of footwear that deals well with water and still has grip when it's wet is really important. And this is what I use. This is the Astroloyak water shoe. It is specifically designed for paddling. Super flexible so that it can squeeze into any type of boat that you're, or any type of position that you're going to be paddling in. It's light. It is got mesh all over the top so that the water will drain out, but it doesn't let rocks and sand in. It has drain holes throughout on the sides to drain any water that gets in, drain it right out. And it's got a really grippy sole. If things are a bit colder, then I go with the booty. I think this is the NRS paddle shoe is what they have a few different booties. And so I'm not sure about the name, but a wetsuit booty like this, they got low cut and higher cut ones. It's neoprene. It's designed to keep your feet warm, whether they're wet or cold. And it similarly, very flexible. It fits in boats very easily, provides lots of protection when you're walking on uneven terrain, and it's grippy. Now, for bigger trips, expeditions, when I don't want my feet getting wet at all, I'll go with this. I've been using the NRS Boundary boot for decades now. This is neoprene as well, so it's insulating, it's warm, but it's waterproof unless you step into water above the cuff here, and then water can obviously get in. This is also pretty flexible, but it's got a bit of a thicker sole so that you can walk on rough terrain for a lot longer and not feel anything. Lots of water shoes, footwear to choose from. The only, the biggest thing I would avoid is bare feet on shore. I mean, I'm guilty of it sometimes, and flip-flops. Flip-flops on shore when they're wet and your feet are wet, they're terrible. And I'm guilty of wearing them too. And usually when I end up, because I'm lazy or I forget and I go barefoot or wear flip-flops, I oftentimes end up with bloody feet. And so it's just a bad idea. Problem with flip-flops is, in some flip-flops, they sell themselves as having grippy soles. Well, who cares if that flip-flop grips the rock, but your foot isn't attached to the flip-flop. It's going to slide off anyway, so it doesn't matter if the flip-flop's grippy or not. That doesn't really help. Next piece of essential comfort gear is a kayak that has a comfortable seat. And that's usually the first thing you give up when you get a budget kayak is a comfortable seat. They'll have very, very basic seating systems. And so the single best upgrade, what I would say, if you're going to spend extra money on a kayak that has a better quality seat, because you're going to have a better time on the water, a more comfortable time on the water, and you're going to avoid lower back pain in particular. Lots of different ways that seats provide comfort. Some seats just have more padding. Some seats will have support under the legs to stop your legs from wanting to fall down, and that actually makes a surprising difference. Some seats are frame seats or elevated seats. They're actually raised off the kayak themselves, and there are suspension seats where it's like a mesh so that it conforms to your butt. Frame seats are oftentimes the most comfortable seats because they raise your butt off the floor and they conform to your butt. But the other thing that happens is they raise your butt higher than your feet when you're sitting in the kayak, and that just puts your body on a slacker angle. And so if you have tight hamstrings, lower back pain, it can be much more comfortable. And these frame seats usually have nice high backs on them that you can crank forward to provide good support, lower back support when you're paddling, but also kick back and into a lounge position. Invest in a kayak with a quality seat, or upgrade the seat if you can. Now let's talk about essential kayak accessories. The first one I'll mention is something I get asked a lot about. Skegs or rudders on a kayak. People want to know, are skegs and rudders essential? Do I need them on a kayak, or should I get a kayak that has one? In some cases, they can be almost essential pieces of gear. Rudders and skegs are designed to help your kayak go straight in windy conditions. So if you're going to be spending a good chunk of time paddling in bodies of water that are exposed to real winds and going to be covering some distance, you like to go for, good paddles, a couple of hours, then you probably want a kayak that has a skeg or a rudder. And a skeg can't be added to a kayak, but a rudder, some kayaks allow you to add a rudder to them after the fact. A bit of a pain in the butt. You're better off to get a kayak that has one to begin with. Most recreational kayaks don't have skegs or rudders because if you're paddling in protected bodies of water that aren't really subject to strong winds and waves and not going on long paddles, then you probably don't need a skeg or a rudder. There's no right or wrong answer whether you do get one or don't get one, and there's no right or wrong answer of whether you get a skeg or a rudder. It's a matter of personal preference. But the more exposed you are to wind and the longer you're traveling, the more a skeg or a rudder becomes an essential kayak accessory. Now, the next kayak accessory to talk about are mounts for actual kayak accessories, for accessories like maybe rod holders for fishing, camera mounts, cell phone mounts, paddle clips or something that'll hold a paddle. The list goes on and on. There's so many accessories that you can now get. And I often get asked, how do you mount these things? And there's a really simple solution. Yak Attack, I've been using Yak Attack accessories for well over a decade. And they're really smart and simple. It starts with a mounting plate. And these are two different Yak Attack mounting plates. This is the Mighty Mount, or Mighty Mount 2, I think it is. And this is the Gear Trax, I believe it's called. Both of these systems, you mount, you screw or bolt these mounting plates to your kayak wherever on the kayak you think you might want to mount something. And then when you have your accessory, all you do, they have this T-bolt system that slides in, and then you just simply twist the accessory until it locks down. Boom. Now that accessory is not coming off your kayak. And then to get it off, you just twist it, slide it out. It's that easy. And so you can move the accessories all around your boat depending on the type of trip you're doing and what accessories you want. And even when it comes time to transporting your kayak, you get to the takeout, you need to take everything off, just quick couple turns, boom, the accessories come right off. It works the same on the track system. And you can get these tracks much longer, and so you can mount these big pieces of track on your kayak, so you can mount multiple accessories if you wanted, or change where you're going to be mounting the accessory depending on the trip. Having these simple mounts and placing them around your kayak is such a great way to customize your kayak. Now let's talk about essential kayak camping gear, and there's really only one piece, I think, of essential kayak camping gear, because it really depends on what type of trip you're doing. But when you're kayak camping, anything that goes in your kayak, you have to expect that it's going to get wet. And that's where dry bags come in. Even kayaks that have hatches that are in watertight compartments, you have to expect water to get in any compartment in your kayak. And so anything that can't get wet needs to go in a dry bag. Now, the problem with kayaks over canoes. In a canoes, you can put everything in one big old dry bag, put it in the back or front of the boat, and no problem. You can't fit big dry bags into a kayak, so you need smaller dry bags. And that's where I've got a wide assortment of small dry bags that I use. This is 5-liter dry bag. This is that one in front, so you can see a 10-liter dry bag. And this is a 15-liter dry bag. The 10 and 15-liter dry bags are definitely the bags that I use the most on kayak camping trips. They're big enough so that it makes sense, but they're small enough that you can get in any hatch and get into the corners of your kayak, take advantage of all the space. So now let's talk about essential kayaking skills. Now, if you're just paddling around close to shore in a sheltered environment, sheltered from wind and waves, there really aren't any essential skills. Any stroke you take that gets your kayak moving is fine. That being said, the better your strokes, the better your skills are, the more effectively you're going to travel on the water, the more comfortably you're going to travel on the water, the more doors will open to you for doing new things. And so I definitely highly recommend developing good strokes and good techniques. I did a video a couple of years ago now called the top 3 strokes that all kayakers need to know. I'll leave a link in the description box to that video. It's worth checking out and working on your strokes. But it isn't until you get into more exposed conditions that all of a sudden you do have essential kayaking skills. And in particular, when you start paddling further from shore than you can comfortably swim, that's when there are some essential kayaking skills that you need to know. You need to be prepared for the event of a capsize, an unexpected flip. And if you're farther out from shore than you can comfortably swim and you capsize and swimming to shore isn't an option. So what is your option? Your option is to get back into the kayak so you can paddle back to shore, or roll the kayak. So rolling becomes an essential skill, or re-entering your kayak from the water is an essential skill, whether you do it on your own or with the assistance of somebody. Either way, those are skills that you have to learn. And this is the line that separates recreational paddling, where you don't need formal instruction. Sure, it helps. It's not a bad idea to take it, but you don't need it. You can just go for a paddle as long as you stay close enough to shore and stay in water that's protected from strong wind and waves. That's fine. As soon as you travel further from shore than you can comfortably swim, then you need the training, you need the practice re-entering your kayak from the water so that if it happens, you can get back in and paddle to shore as needed. And something else that's worth mentioning there too is oftentimes when you're offshore, the conditions that cause you to flip, well, they're usually rough. And so you have to be proficient enough in re-entering your kayak so that you can do it in rough conditions. And so that means practicing it. It's not just something you do once and say, I got it, I'm an expert at this. No, practice it so that when you really do need it, and maybe you're in rough and windy conditions out in the middle of a lake or some big body of water, that you can do it. So there you have it. Those are the essential kayaking skills and gear that all paddlers should have or know. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to Paddle TV if you haven't already. If you like this one, you'll like the other videos that I'm coming out with, because I got a lot more tips coming out this year, gear reviews as well. And if you're interested in watching paddling adventures, I've got some awesome trips planned this year, some pretty big backcountry trips, and I'm going to be releasing all of those trips. They're not only entertaining, but they're also informative and educational. I try to teach as I go. You'll find those on my new YouTube channel, Ken Whiting Adventures. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below, ask any questions that you have, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.